Hi, everyone. My name is Bensmihen. I'm a third year honors urban planning student, and today I'm grateful to share more about the research project that I worked on in summer 2020. Last summer, I had the honor of working alongside Professor Zachary Patterson and a master's student in my department, Gavin Hermanson, in Concordia's Transportation Research for Integrated Planning Lab. We elaborated on Alan Berto's work on the City Mobility Index to create the multimodal accessibility target. Now, you may be asking yourself, what do some of these terms mean? What does accessibility mean? What does the City Mobility Index mean? Let me break that down for you. First, I want to define accessibility. Accessibility is the ability for people to access destinations and opportunities. In this case, it's access to jobs. It's the ability for people to reach and access jobs or employment. So these measures or the metrics that are used to analyze accessibility are heavily unimodal. I'll give you an example. So the City Mobility Index is an example of an accessibility metric. Now, even though the name says it's a mobility index, it's actually an accessibility index because it looks at how many jobs, it looks at the population weighted average of the number of jobs accessible to the average individual within a given period of time. But it's unimodal in nature. So traditionally, what these kinds of measures look at is one mode of transportation, whether it be car, public transit, walking, or biking. So they do not account for more than one mode. So the CMI or the City Mobility Index is a great start. But if we want to make it something that is measured across multiple modes so that planners could have a better understanding of the realistic trends happening in cities, more needs to be done. So first step is defining the effective labor market. And this is the proportion of jobs accessible to workers by a single mode. What this is, it's dividing the CMI. So once again, the CMI is the population weighted average number of jobs accessible to the average individual. This is dividing it by the total number of jobs. And you get the effective labor market. This allows us to calculate the multimodal accessibility target, which is a tool that is created to evaluate accessibility across multiple modes. So as opposed to only looking at car employment or access to employment, we could also look at car and bus, or car and transit, or car walking and transit, or car biking, walking and transit. It depended on the data available. Now, the MAT, or the multimodal accessibility target, is a mode-weighted average of the effective labor market across multiple modes. So essentially, we're multiplying the effective labor market by a weight. And in this case, this weight is morning peak period mode shares in the Montreal context. So this is between roughly 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. in the Montreal context, or 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. more specifically, sorry. So what this is, it's unitless value bounded by 0 and 1. Values that are closer to 0 mean that there is lower multimodal accessibility. Values that are closer to 1 imply higher multimodal accessibility. So the 1 is the ideal, the target, and what cities should achieve. 0 is far from ideal. So the calculation of the MAT requires data. So data comes from the mode share data from the 2013 Montreal Origin Destination Survey. For those that don't know, Montreal Origin Destination Survey is run every 5 years, and it's a quality and benchmark in transportation planning in terms of efficiency and in terms of data collection standards. We also relied on employment data by census tract from the 2016 Canadian Census. And this was obtained through Quebec's data consortium. We also relied on traffic analysis zones. So these are zones defined by the Ministry of Transport of Quebec. And we looked at travel times between each traffic analysis zone by car and by transit with the implementation of the bus rapid transit line in Montreal on PNF, and I'll get to that in a second. And this is during morning peak period. So these were provided by the Quebec Ministry of Transport. And we tested this and we applied the MAT to the Greater Montreal region. So the Greater Montreal region has a population of over 4.1 million people, and it's what this area is on the map. Now, we particularly looked at the effects of the PINA bus rapid transit line. So this is a 21 station line that has dedicated bus lanes. So currently there is a dedicated bus lane, but it does still flow in traffic. So they're redoing and restructuring PINA to accommodate this bus rapid transit line. So it's really a direct path in the middle of the street for buses and buses only, and there's stations, dedicated lights. And this runs from Laval to the East End on Rue Notre Dame. So it's a lengthy stretch that goes through Montreal, but the aim is to improve access to transit. So to get results and to look at MAT, first we needed to use Python and combine all the data. And then we were able to calculate MAT and CMI. So first we needed to calculate the City Mobility Index, which is the number of jobs accessible to the average individual in the Montreal region. So in the base case scenario for both automobile and transit, we see that there is a number of jobs accessible to the average individual. But when you implement the BRT, people have more access to jobs. So there's greater jobs accessible due to the implementation of the bus rapid transit line on PINA within a given period of time. And this is looked at for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and 60 minutes. So it's how many jobs are accessible in this given amount of time. So we see that it has increased. And as a result, the effective labor market also increased. So the effective labor market is the proportion of jobs accessible to workers by a single mode in the Montreal region. So by automobile and by transit, your effective labor markets are slightly increasing. Also, we see that when you calculate the MAT, which is the proportion of jobs accessible to workers by a single mode in the Montreal region, multimodal accessibility to employment increases as a result of the implementation of the bus rapid transit project. So we confirmed that there is enhanced accessibility benefits to providing this bus rapid transit system. So what this does is this is a tool that planners could use to evaluate the effects of accessibility on projects or to evaluate benchmarks for cities. So what this research did was we drafted a manuscript that was submitted for presentation to the Transportation Research Board annual meeting in January 2021. We also elaborated upon this paper and looked at what could be done specifically for the PNF corridor and the benefits of this project on the corridor itself, which we defined as a 1 kilometer buffer around the corridor. This paper was then submitted and hopefully it will be presented at the World Society for Transport and Land Use Research. This calculation of the MAT has also been fundamental in my honors thesis, which aims to portray multimodal accessibility to jobs across the entire Canadian context, looking at cities across Canada. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to reach me by email. Thank you. Have a great day.